So I'm Hayley Watts. I'm one of the productivity ninjas at Think Productive. I first discovered Think Productive when I was a client on the Inbox to Zero workshop, feeling really overwhelmed and like I just had too much work to do, not enough time to do it in. And all this stuff really helped me. So here I am. Dee, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, brilliant. Thanks, Hayley. Nice to kind of meet you all, even virtually. My name's Diane or Dee, and I work for HQ at Think Productive as Learning Success Manager. And I'm also the cohort lead for this program. More about what that means a bit later on.
Fantastic, thank you. So thank you all for joining us today. The kind of the way we're going to run the session, we're going to give you a bit of information about the program because that's kind of what you're here for. We're going to give you a bit of a sneak peek, a taster session of some of the material that we're going to cover, just to give you a bit of an insight into what you might be able to expect on the program. But what we really want to do is to be able to answer your questions. So there's a little Q&A button there, which is separate to the chat. If you've got any questions, as soon as that question pops into your head, like if you've got a question now, that's fine. We're just going to ask you to pop that into the Q&A. We'll make sure we've got time for that at the end. But if you're posting your questions there, it might be that we can answer those kind of as we go through things. So I can see that a couple of other people have just joined us. So welcome. We're here to tell you a bit more about the Influential Leader Programme. We do 3 different leadership programs. We do our High Performance Manager, which is the level 1 for people who are kind of relatively new to managing people. The Influential Leader is for those of you who've kind of got some management skills already. You've maybe been doing this for a little while and just want to kind of increase your confidence, your skills and the tools that you use. And then our level 3 for the Visionary Leader is more for kind of senior strategic C-suite executive type roles. So that just to give you a bit of a flavour of where the programme sits in the context of some of the other things that we do. Anything to add on that, Dee?
No, I think that's a really good
Oh,
kickoff.
fantastic. So first cohort of our level 2 programme begins on the 18th of April, which sounds like it's a long way off. But I was looking at my calendar the other day, I was like, it's really not that far off at all. So yeah, it's for emerging managers, it says there. So those of you who are kind of at that mid-level of management, the role is probably you're managing a team. Maybe they're managing other people, maybe they're not, but there's some elements of your job that are about managing others. And I think that always takes up more time than like you think it's going to, but maybe you've still got some operational kind of responsibilities as well. So that's what we mean by kind of emerging managers. What we're looking to do over the programme, we're talking about how do you engage and retain your people? Like you recruited some great people, the recruitment's gone well, maybe they've been in post for a long time, maybe they're quite new. How do we engage and retain everybody? Oh, excuse me. Thinking about how you work as a team, like particularly in the world of hybrid work, how we communicate with each other, how we collaborate over the last few years has changed. So thinking about that, what do we do? How do we make sure that what you're doing in those spaces really works for the team of people that you're working with? We're going to talk a little bit about meetings throughout the course of the programme. One of my favourite topics, having been to some really, really terrible meetings over the years, it's something I've got interested in. And we're going to talk about empowering your team through coaching. And that's what we're going to give you a little taster of towards the end of the session today. So you get to see a bit of the content, if you like, of the course. And one of the things that we think is hugely important within a team is that psychological safety. How do we create a culture where people are resilient, where they feel that they're able to raise their thoughts and their concerns in a way that feels safe and that they're not going to be judged or penalised for doing that. Dee, I'm assuming you're going to chip in if I've missed something really important, right?
Yeah, I was thinking about for psychological safety as well, how making mistakes and seeing the good in that as well.
Yeah, I listened to I was at a conference a few months ago where Stephen Bartlett was talking.
Yep.
And he was talking about a business he'd been working with, and an individual in business who was quite new to their role made a mistake that cost the business £7,000. And the manager of that business had said to Stephen, "Do I fire this person?" He was like, "Are you kidding me? You've just spent £7,000 training them. There's no way they're
Yeah.
going to make that mistake again," which I thought was a really refreshing take on that. As an influential leader, you want to think about how you influence others, both those that you're managing, but also those people who might be further up the chain. So thinking about how you do that, and how you work in a way day to day that's going to be really effective and move you forwards in the right ways. So that's what we're looking to cover. I don't know if that prompts any questions for people, and I can see that since we started, we've had another handful of people joining us. So welcome. Dee, I'm going to let you talk about the logistics.
Oh, fantastic. So as you can see there, it's a 3-month program, and you'll meet with our subject matter experts weekly. The whole program is delivered online using Zoom, but we use all the features of Zoom, so you'll feel really engaged and connected. You won't be in the same room, but there'll still be lots of breakout rooms, discussions, polls, and so you can really build those connections with your cohort. And just the next button, Hayley. Thank you. So in your cohort, there'll be up to 20 other leaders. And what's really lovely about the public programs is that there'll be leaders from different organizations and different industries. So you can share learning and experiences in a really safe environment where everyone's on that same learning journey together. We think 20 is a really great number because it's big enough that you can still share lots of ideas and learn from each other, but small enough that everyone can get to know each other and feel like it's a safe environment. And most importantly, the start date is the 18th of April and the finale is the 18th of July.
I love that you've already got the end in mind. That's cool. And I was just going to say, I know some people might be more used to Teams than Zoom.
Mm,
And the reason we use Zoom is it allows us to do some things that Teams doesn't, but we will make sure, you know, we talk you through
yeah.
where to go and what to do. So we promise we'll kind of we're aware that some people are yet less used to Zoom than others. So please don't let that put you off if you're a Teams person. Okay, so the structure. You mentioned the kickoff briefing
I
already.
did.
The
Yeah.
18th, right?
Yeah. So all of the masterclasses are 2 hours, but the kickoff briefing starts us off. So the first week will be a little bit longer. That will have an extra 40 minutes. And the purpose of the kickoff briefing is to just align our goals, our expectations, get to know each other, and just start that learning and that cohort experience together. Before you start, there will be an opportunity to do a baseline questionnaire that allows you to look at the skills you really want to master and build on in the program. And there'll be some time in the kickoff briefing for you to reflect on the results of that questionnaire. And then there are 6 masterclasses. Each masterclass is for the whole cohort, all 20 of you, and that's 2 hours. And they alternate. And in between each one of them, you'll have an implementation clinic. And that's in a slightly smaller group. And that's an opportunity for you to spend some time with your productivity ninja, just reflecting on everything you've learned and explored and put into practice since the masterclass. So at the end of each masterclass, we set a challenge. It's not a written challenge, it's not homework, it's nothing like that. It's a practical challenge that gets you trying out some of the skills and tools you've learned. And in the implementation clinics in between, it's a time to share and reflect on what's gone well, or even support each other if something hasn't gone so well. And then at the end, there's a program finale where you will have done your questionnaire again and seen all that brilliant impact, and also have a chance with your cohort to just celebrate everything you've learned and how far you've come.
I
I
love
think,
doing those because that's a really nice chance for people to kind of reflect on not
yeah,
just what they've learned, but what they've already started implementing. Because like
yeah,
3 months, right? You're able to kind of start implementing things straight away.
Yeah. And I think on the next slide, you'll see what that looks like in practice. So I think the next slide is probably going to be the one.
Yeah, before we go on to the next slide, there was just something I wanted to add. Um, like Dee, you mentioned like there's going to be a bit of a community feel,
Yeah.
people are going to get to help and support each other. And I love that kind of stuff. For me, like that's where a lot of the learning comes from. But I know that there might also be people on the call who are maybe feeling a bit uncertain or a bit
Mm,
anxious about that and thinking, oh, I don't want to join in. I just want to kind of sit back and learn. So you get as much out of the program as you kind of put in. If you are somebody who would rather just come along to the master classes and not contribute lots, we're never going to make you say
no.
something that you don't want to say. So just wanted to kind of reassure people who might be wondering about that. So this is the program. God, that looks like lots of writing, doesn't it?
It does, but this is
Lots
the
of stuff.
stuff that a lot of people want to know. They want to know who's doing it, when, what times. This is for the logistics people whose brain likes to think in charts. If your brain doesn't think that way, don't take a screenshot of it. So yeah, you can see here, this is just a graphic representation of what it looks like in practice. So you'll see the kickoff briefing with a masterclass, then an implementation clinic, and so on till the end, till we reach the program finale. And you can see there's just a really great mix of masterclasses that were all going to help build on the leadership skills you already have. Um, and hopefully make a big impact to improve for yourself and for your teams as well. So you can see there we've got cracking the engagement puzzle, supercharge your team comms, which is it's one of my favorites actually. Um, just getting real clarity with your team about what communication tools you use for what. We've got Hayley, your favorite there, the guide to fixing meetings.
Yeah.
Coaching to empower, another one I know that's your favorite. Thriving teams in tricky times, managing upwards, and then our finale as well. And if you want to dive a bit deeper into the content, soon there'll be a link to our website and you'll be able to read a little bit more detail about what's in each of the sessions, so that you can have a bit more of an in-depth view read.
And the idea of those implementation groups is you get to come together as a smaller group. So you have the masterclass, which is kind of like the training workshop, if you like.
Yeah.
And then the implementation clinic is a chance to ask any questions, but it's a week later. So you've had a go at putting some of it into practice. So you might say, oh, this thing worked really well, or oh, I got stuck when that happened. And when I've done the implementation clinics previously, like sometimes people just turn up with a question. Sometimes people turn up and they're like, well, I haven't really got any questions, just looking to learn and see what comes from other people. And that sparks some questions for people. Equally, I know in the last cohort I did of the level 1 leadership program, I had somebody who kind of sent me her thoughts and self assessment reflections beforehand. So this is what I need some help with. So we were able to kind of work with that differently, and all of those options are absolutely fine. So I don't know if you've got any questions about that. As I say, pop the questions in the Q&A. We've got some more people joined us since we started. So if you've got any questions, that's the best place to pop those. But in terms of how we support you through that leadership journey.
Yeah, so I've mentioned that part of my role is your community lead. So what's lovely about this program is you have different ninjas teaching you and exploring with you on the master classes. But I'm the kind of stable point of contact. So I come to all of the master classes, the kickoff briefing, the finale, just so that there's someone who's there following your journey and just helping with the relationships and any questions. Lots of people reach out to me for logistics questions. Can I swap the timing of my clinic next week because I've got to do the school run, all those kinds of things. So just so that there's no confusion, you've got someone who can answer questions. There's a lot of support in terms of the group itself, lots of cross-industry experience, as I've discussed. And we also set up a group WhatsApp for you. And like Hayley said, you can be as vocal on that as you like. In some cohorts, we have people sending messages and thoughts and ideas and reflections fairly regularly, and other people just really like to listen and do the odd like button and things. And that's fine. Um, we only use it during working hours as well. It's not something that's going to be pinging all weekend. And you also have um, access to our academy. So you have your own space in our Productivity Ninja Academy that's just for you. And it has video recordings of all your masterclasses. And it also has all your resources, lots of bonus materials, extra reading, so that during the program, but also in the years after, you can still access and kind of go back and reflect and say, oh, that was so useful. What was that thing I did? I'm going to go back and refresh and share it perhaps with other leaders as well. So
And
you're
Andrew's,
supported. Sorry,
sorry,
Hayley.
Andrew's asked a question which kind of links into that. Andrew said, what happens if you miss a week for holidays or sickness? So
Yeah,
as Dee said, like the recording of the masterclass is available for you on the academy. We don't record the clinics because
no.
that's more people bringing their learning, their expertise. We might do a bit of coaching. We might just share some information with you. There's not less structure, but less planned structure, if you
Yeah.
like, to those sessions. So they're your sessions for your implementation clinic for that kind of smaller group. So we don't record those because that doesn't seem fair.
No. And it's true, life happens. Some people are sick sometimes as well. Um, so we have some people who watch the recordings and then have a few follow-up questions. That's fine. We're always happy to have a quick call if you miss a session, just to make sure that you've got the learning as well. So that's, I think, the beauty of being in a cohort of 20. You can feel really supported.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think also, I know in the past people have missed the masterclass or the clinic. People might share things on the WhatsApp group
Yeah.
afterwards. So they might say, oh, well, I've just looked at the session. I'm now doing this. Has anybody else tried that? So it's another opportunity to get that kind of community learning. So there's Dee's explained a bit about her role within the program and how that works. David is going to do the cracking the engagement puzzle. That's just going to be so exciting. I think we have a free workshop coming up on something similar that David's running in the next few weeks. So that is really cool. I'm excited about that. We've got Grace, who is doing your supercharge your team communications and thriving teams in tricky times. I can't say that. Well, that's a tongue twister. So Grace is one of our productivity ninjas, and she's also written a book called Struggle. So the thriving team, some of that stuff comes from the Struggle book. So Grace is a brilliant person to be doing that with you. Oh, that's me. So my hair's changed. I need a new picture. And me and Graham wrote the How to Fix Meetings book. So I'm going to be talking through some of the kind of principles there. And like Grace, in my work outside of Think Productive and at Think Productive, we do some coaching. So I'm going to be running the Coaching to Empower session, and I'm going to give you a bit of a snapshot about what we're going to cover there shortly. And then Russell, who's one of our other productivity ninjas, who has lots of expertise in management, is going to be focusing on the managing upwards aspect of things. So I think when people talk about management training, they tend to think about how they manage people. But when this level 2 cohort, you're managing people, but you're also managing upwards.
Yep.
And that is quite a skill in itself. And I think one that often gets neglected. So that's going to be really helpful. Well, I'm excited. I want to do the whole thing. Just have here, and I know people read at different paces. We just have here a few quotes for you from people who have done some of the management training programs with us in the past. I love that one there from Stockport Homes. I've never seen so many employees so enthused about implementing ideas and discovering new concepts proposed in a workshop before. That's cool. So there's a real range of organisations there. I don't know where you're all from, but yeah, we've got some large national and international businesses there. Stockport Homes is a housing association, so kind of one of the larger charities. So yeah, real diversity in terms of the types of organisations that take part in the programmes. And for me, that's one of the things I really enjoy in the public programmes is people coming together from different sectors, different industries. And very often, we work in our kind of area of expertise, and we think that the leadership challenges we're having might be unique to our industry and our sector. And I think very often on the public programmes, people are like, oh, other people are struggling with this too. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. It's just a thing. It's not good or bad. It's just, I think, one of the things that makes it interesting and helpful as a learning tool. So this is the coaching to empower model. So we spend a bit of time on the in the 2-hour masterclass working through this model in a bit more detail. My challenge is to do what would normally be a 2-hour session. I'm not going to do a 2-hour session in 2 minutes. That's a ridiculous thing to say. I'm going to give you an overview. And there is a lot more detail that goes into this, obviously, when we're doing the more in-depth class. But I wanted to just kind of talk you through the model. So what we're talking about here is when somebody you're working with comes to you with a problem, right? And people often go, oh, I'm stuck on something. I know what I'll do. I'll ask my manager because they're going to have the answer. And it might be that you've got the answer, but you don't want to be the person people go to solve their problems all the time. We want to be able to empower people to solve their own problems, because that means they're coming to us less often, but it also means we're creating an organisation of thinkers, an organisation of people who can go, I've got this problem, let me solve it. And that they're able to do that in a way that works for them as well as for you, your team, and the wider organisation. So it says there, listen to the problem. I mean, that sounds obvious, doesn't it? But when we're talking about coaching and using coaching tools, we're talking about listening in a slightly different way. Let me give you an example of somebody on a workshop who initially presented something that said, right, this is the problem. This is what I'm experiencing. And they had a member of their team who they'd overheard telling another member of the team that they weren't going to do something that the other person was asking them to do. And we talk a lot in some of our workshops about the importance of saying no. So we're like, that's okay sometimes to say no. But the person had a real frustration, I suppose, with the way that the person was saying no. They had a real frustration with the fact that there was a bit of a dynamic between this one individual and a couple of other people on the team where they weren't getting on, and that's going to happen, right? You're managing people and they're not always going to get on well with each other. So the person presented the problem as, I didn't like the fact that this person was saying they weren't going to do something to somebody else on the team, when actually it's kind of their job, it's part of their responsibilities. But when through the coaching conversation, somebody asked some more questions about that, which was mainly just like, tell me more about it. What else is going on? So really open questions that don't have an agenda. You're not trying to steer anybody in a particular direction. You're just looking to find out more with a natural sense of curiosity. And what actually came up in terms of, it wasn't that the person had said no to this particular request. It wasn't the fact that the person had said no to this particular person. It was more about their attitude to teamwork. It was quite a small organisation, or quite a small team within a slightly bigger organisation. And that just meant, like, if one person was off sick, people had to pick some things up that they might not otherwise do, and had to kind of reprioritize and juggle. And this person was particularly finding that challenging to deal with. So once we listened to that person's experience, it wasn't the particular example that they'd given, it was an underlying problem. And the problem they'd initially shared was a symptom of that problem. So by asking some more questions, by asking tell me more, what else is going on? And sometimes just reflecting back, okay, you sound upset, you sound sad, you sound really frustrated, however that person's sounding, to really kind of identify what's going on for that individual. at that point in time. So we talk in a bit more detail in the session, obviously, about how to do that, but I've given you some of the basics. So have a play with that next time somebody comes to you with a problem. Try and find out a bit more about it. Step 2, and I think the temptation as a manager, and I know I did this when I first started managing people, is to say, okay, you're giving me this problem. Let me take the problem away for you, and I'll return it at a later date, neatly gift wrapped, and it'll be sorted out, right? We don't want to be doing that. There are times where that's appropriate, but a lot of the time it's not. So what we want to do in step 2 is say to the person, okay, so this is the underlying problem, not the symptom. We're looking at what the underlying problems are. What's your goal? What do you want to achieve? What does success look like for you? So the person gets to think through what's the result they want to see, rather than you deciding as the manager, this is what we want to see happen here. And they're subtle but very important differences. What we then want to do is discover what's going on, because very often people aren't going to come to you as soon as they encounter a problem. They're going to have a go at trying to sort it out first. So we want to ask them about that. Okay, well, you've told me that this is the problem. This is what you want to achieve. What have you done already? And they might tell you about, well, I tried this, and you want to find out how that went, what worked, what didn't work. We want to find out a bit more information about, okay, well, what else have you tried? Or maybe what else have you thought about in terms of the next steps? Step 4 is very often, I think, done actually at step 1. We're putting a bit of distance between what happens in step 4 and step 1. So very often the temptation, somebody comes to you with a problem and you tell them what to do about it and they go away. They might or may not do it, but they'll come back to you next time they've got a problem. This is the point at which you decide whether to give your ideas and your suggestions or not. Because I can guarantee you, through a lot of the coaching work that I've done, people are more likely to implement something if it's their idea. So if you just come along and tell them what to do, that may or may not happen. But if they come up with the suggestion and the way forward, then they're more likely to do that. So there will be times where somebody perhaps isn't willing or isn't able to take the problem forward. Maybe they don't have the authority. Maybe they don't have the skills. Maybe they don't have the knowledge. Maybe they haven't got the capacity because they're really busy. So at this point, you're deciding, are you going to give any input? And if they seem willing and able, maybe you don't need to. But if you are going to give some input, this is the point at which you're going to do that. And then step 5 is to summarize the next steps and identify a time for the follow-up action. So when we're discovering that current state, we're finding out, what have you done already? What are you thinking you might be doing next? And then we decide whether we're going to give the input or not. And then at the end, we want to identify the next steps and what the follow-up is going to look like. So it's not just like, you're going to go off and do that. It's okay, you're going to go off and do that. When do you report back? Do I need to know, as your manager, how that's gone? You might make a note for yourself about when you're going to follow up and check up with people. So I want to encourage you to have a go at using that. And I've really oversimplified that. But I did manage to do it in about 11 minutes, Dee. I'm quite pleased.
Yeah.
Even if the only thing you do differently is that listening to the problem and asking more questions to elicit more information, I promise you that's going to make a difference and make a really good start to empowering your team to be able to work in different ways. So that's the coaching to empower model that we do. I can't remember which week it is, partway through the program. So by the end of the program, you're going to have some specific and actionable ideas. You're going to have a whole set of strategies of things that you're going to do differently. You're going to have time to put it into practice, but also an opportunity to reflect on that learning, to ask questions and to get help, both through the implementation clinics, the WhatsApp group, and just reaching out to us in between sessions if you need a bit of extra help. Inspiring self-awareness and brilliance in yourself. So giving you a bit more confidence to be able to deal with some of these situations. And that you're going to start seeing an impact pretty quickly in terms of the work and with the people that you manage. Dee, what's to add?
Just I don't think I've mentioned the workbooks.
Yeah.
How the masterclasses have workbooks, so you have space to action plan and record your strategies and your thoughts as you go along.
Mm.
So I think action planning and is so important for attendees because they think about real life situations that apply to them. And they some people are quite open and talking about them, and other people like to kind of internalize that, and either option is fine. Um, but it's that putting it into practice, I think that makes the biggest. The theory's great, but actually, what does that mean in my job at this time? And I think the next, I
Sorry.
can see you coughing, Hayley. I'm sorry. I was going to talk about the survey that I know is coming up on the next slide.
Yes, before you do that, there was a question specifically about the model there. So I thought that would be a good time
Mm.
to look into that. And it's a brilliant question. I love this question. How would you handle a situation where the solution they offer isn't going to work? Do you let them try it, or do you tell them why you wouldn't do that? And I think for me, this is a bit where you ask more questions. Because do you know what? If somebody goes to their manager and says, I've got this solution to a problem, and you turn around to the manager and say, that is not going to work, they they're feeling a little bit small at that point. And do you know what? You might even be wrong. Maybe you're not, maybe you are, who knows? But I would look to find out more information. So I say, okay, well, you're planning to do this. How would you handle X, Y, and Z? Okay, sounds like a good starting point, yeah, what you suggested. But have you thought about? And then you throw them in some of your concerns for them to come up with a solution. So I wouldn't say outright, like, I don't think that's going to work. Unless it's something that is completely off the wall. Like it's not going to be within budget. Maybe the marketing manager decides they want to hire a plane and fly a banner with your website above it across central London. I'm being quirky. Like I think we can pretty much guarantee that's not going to work. So unless it's something really extreme, I would encourage you to ask questions to help them come to that solution. If they decide actually it's within budget, you're not really convinced it's going to work, but they've got answers about how they're going to deal with things, you then need to decide if you're going to support them in making that decision or not. So you need to kind of decide on what the ground rules are there. And we do talk about that a bit more in the session as well. So thank you. That is a brilliant question. Love it. So it was an anonymous question. That's cool. Keep them coming because it was a great question. D, baselines.
Baseline. Yeah. So we mentioned earlier that as part of the program, you do a baseline, you get a report, and then at the end, you get an impact report. So we thought it would be a really nice thing to actually share the link now. So I've just popped that in the chat for you. So this is an opportunity for you to save that link and a little bit later on, do that survey. And what that will do is it will take you through some of the thoughts and reflections we ask of people before the program, but it will also, once you press submit, generate your own report for you. It just gets sent to you, doesn't get sent to anyone else or shared anywhere. And it will give you an opportunity to say, oh, do you know what? These are the things I'm really confident in. These are the things I'm less confident in. And that will really help you decide whether this is a great program for you. Um, and also, just as a bit of an extra, we're going to pick someone really randomly who completes the survey and actually send them a 50% off the program code. So please do it because it gets you the survey report, the questionnaire, and it also potentially gets you 50% off the program as well. So it's a win-win.
D, do we know when that draw's happening so people know when they need to do that by? Is it
Yeah,
or
yeah, it'll be end of play tomorrow.
fantastic? Thank you. And I think the other thing about that survey, and we haven't talked about this, Dee, but it just like popped into my head. If you're joining the session today because you're interested in doing the leadership program, but you need to convince your manager or somebody else who's got the budget, that report might kind of help identify what you're going to get out of the session that's a bit more tailored to you and your needs. Okay, so we have a tell us about the QR code, Dee. Is this another way for people to get the...
Yeah, so this is how this will take you to where you apply, and I've popped the link in the chat as well. And this is where you'll find all the information we've shared today about the program, but also more open descriptions of all of the masterclasses and the kickoff briefing in case you want to read in a bit more detail. This is the link to share with your organization if you're asking for them to fund it. Um, I've also in the chat put a link to my calendar. So if you have a read and you've still got questions and you want to chat through whether this is the right fit for you, you can book in any time on my calendar, and we can always just kind of go through a little bit about your context and what you're hoping to get out, because we want to make sure that if you do sign up, it's going to be the right fit for you. So that's my calendar link there as well.
Fantastic. And I've shared my contact details. I mean, Dee's obviously the first point of contact, but if you wanted to connect, then feel free to do that. Okay. So Dee, we've got the costs.
Yeah, this is
I've
the
alluded.
cost. This always comes up as a question. So you can see there our early bird rate is valid until the 18th of March. And one lucky person is going to get 50% off as well. So that's a good incentive to do the questionnaire. And
Absolutely.
you can see there all the prices are also on that website on our website on the link. But it's there for complete clarity for you as well.
Wonderful. So time to hand over to you for questions. So if you would like to come in on voice, then please just kind of pop your hand up. We should be able to see that your hands are coming up, and I will unmute you. Equally, you can use the Q&A function if you prefer, like whatever works for you.
We're very good. We're in time, Hayley. We've got a whole 5 minutes for any
Okay.
questions.
But if you have got other questions and we can't answer them all in 5 minutes, then we'll get the
Mhm.
answers to you.
Yeah, for
Um,
sure.
just going to give people a moment or two to think what questions they might have and to pop them into the Q&A section. Trying to think what questions I would have if I was just about to start on this.
I oh, I was thinking some of the questions we got last year. We were asked, "Do you get a certificate?" And the answer is yes.
Oh, nice.
Um, last year, I think we were asked a question about homework, which is why I made it really clear that this isn't a program that's pass or fail. There's no written assignment,
Essays.
no essays. It's all about, it's all about the individual learning for you. And it's a time over 3 months for you to really make great progress as a leader, and put into practice all the brilliant tools that you're going to learn along the way. Um, and yeah, we do have people that kind of after the 3 months follow on to the next program as well. So you don't have to do program, you don't have to have done level 1 before doing level 2, although some people do follow 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah, I think that thing about the homework is really interesting, because I know I would certainly be put off if there was like an essay. So the tasks to do are literally things that are going to help you with your work, and you kind of decide exactly what that might look like and make it relevant to your context. I've got another anonymous question there. Are there any physical materials with the program?
Oh, that's a great question. Yeah, so you get a goodie pack in the post with a really nice tote bag, some stationery, and some books to read as well. And then all the workbooks are online, but they're fillable workbooks. Sometimes you get a PDF and you can't type in it, and that's the most annoying thing. But our product guardian client makes sure they're all fillable so you can keep them and type into them.
Great, fantastic, thank you. And then there's another question about confidentiality. Is there confidentiality with what's shared in the groups?
Yeah, so that's in terms of at the beginning, when we kick off, we kind of iron that all out together as a group and talk about how we're going to work together. And for sure, we talk about confidentiality. When people share, they tend not to overshare, and we ask that you don't name individuals from that you work with. But for that reason, we don't actually record the clinics, because in the clinics, people tend to share more about their individual contexts and experiences. Um, but we do record the masterclasses, but they're only available to the people who are on the cohort. We don't put them online anywhere or anything like that.
And we don't record the breakout rooms in the
No,
master classes either, do we?
no,
So
no,
if you're going into a room and you're discussing something in a bit more depth, then that bit's not recorded.
no.
And then we've got another question. How long are the recordings available to us? I think they're just always there, aren't they, Dee?
Yeah, it's forever access. They'll be there. We don't move, we don't take them down.
So I can't see any other questions coming through. Dee and I will stay here for a while in case you do have any other questions. That's that QR code again, if you wanted to find out a bit more. In fact, I'll leave that up in case any of you didn't get the QR code earlier. We will stick around if you have any further questions. Anything to add before we close things up, Dee?
No, just do book in. Even if you just want to have a virtual, share a cup of tea virtually or a coffee and just chat about this is what I've done, this is the leadership training I've done so far or haven't done so far. What do you think? So
And
I'd
there's
love
certainly
to.
no obligation, right? If
No,
people book a
no,
call,
it's not a
don't,
sales
yeah,
call. It's
it's
a
good to
no,
find out more.
it's a genuine conversation to find out if this is what you're looking for. You know, we want it to be the right match for you. It's not a sales call for sure.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much. I can't see any other questions. I'm just going to check in the chat to make sure nobody's posted a question there that we've missed, which they haven't. So thank you all very much for joining us. Thank you for your questions. Some really brilliant questions there. And we'll end things there. She said. Stop.